All right. Well, welcome everyone to summer 2021. Okay, so we're going to have these meetings every day for this week where we come together and we're going to do some stuff to sort of get you onboarded and ready to go. Today, we're going to start off with introductions, and I'm going to start off actually by introducing to you, and my kids, I'm adjacent to the kitchen, so you might hear lunch there. But I'm going to just sort of, my name, all of you know me because you've all talked to me at some point, but I'm the director of the lab. I'm going to start off by introducing our project manager, Aubrey Souza, who is actually a student, and this is her second summer working with the lab. And now she gets to get a little taste of more responsibilities, and she's going to be our project manager. And so actually I'm going to talk a lot today, but Aubrey's going to do most of the talking for the rest of the week. So I'll let her introduce herself, maybe say a little something about your involvement with the project, and then we can just go around and other people can introduce themselves just so we get an idea of who you are. So maybe, most of you are, everyone on this call is a law student at Suffolk, although we do have people who will be in this cohort who are not. So say where you are, like what year you are, that sort of thing. And I'm going to mute so you don't have to hear lunch. Aubrey, take us away.
Thanks, David. So my name is Aubrey. I am going to be a 3L at Suffolk, and I did work at the lab as a volunteer last summer, and I continued into the fall as a class at Suffolk and could take the Lit Lab. So I was there for 8 or 9 months straight, working on various projects, and I couldn't stay away, and so I came back really excited to work with everyone and keep this going. It's just really been the most influential part of my law school experience. So I hope you all find the same this summer. And I'll be here for anything you need during this week and going forward. Big resource person. So you can always find me on Teams if you need anything. And so I'm just going to call you out, going around my squares to introduce yourselves so we can meet and get to know each other. So first is Connor.
All right. So my name is Connor Perry. I'm a student at Suffolk, just like all of you, I guess. And I'm going to be going into my 2L year coming up here. Before this, I worked for, David had mentioned, if any of you caught that, for the Texas Rangers in sports for a little bit. I went to UMass for my undergrad and got a sports management degree out of there. So a little bit about me, and I'm in the Boston area now as well. So as we open up here, if anyone wants to hang after we get to know each other a little more, please let me know. I've been very lonely for this past semester.
Oh, you got a whole new group of friends, so this will be great. Ryan, you're next on my list.
Hi, so yeah, I've definitely seen a few of you guys around through classes, but also first year student, just finished up the first year going into my second year. I did my undergrad at Quinnipiac. I studied behavioral neuroscience, and now just bouncing back and forth between Westford, which is like suburban Boston, and Dorchester. So you might see my blurred background change every now and then, depending on where I'm at. But other than that, not too much going on except this and dog watching for the rest of the summer.
Awesome. I am also a Bobcat, Ryan. Sorry, I won't DJ in between everyone, but I'm Catherine.
Hi, I'm Catherine. I'm also leading 1L going to 2L. I also work in the Human Rights and Indigenous Peoples Clinic, so I'll be splitting my time between this clinic and the other clinic, which reminds me, Regis Jacob says hi. Yeah, and that's pretty much all I'm doing this summer. I got my master's in Human Rights and International Relations in the UK. I grew up in Ohio, so I'm Cleveland Browns Indians fan. That's it.
Awesome. Joelle, you are next.
Hi, my name is Joelle. I am a rising 3L, so I'm going to be a 3L in the fall. I've taken like a couple classes and worked with David before, and I didn't think my law school career would lead me here, but I really love the work that we do. I think it's really cool to just help people and like to automate these forms, and also learning this new skill that I really had nothing about, like had no information about. So I've learned so much and I'm really excited for the summer.
Yay. Regis.
Hello, my name is Regis. I am also part of the Rising 2L club. We are now a club, I've decided. I don't know. I'm always very bad at introductions. I'm a fairly regular person. I'm currently in the process of moving, actually. So in the next couple of weeks, this wonderful hallway will be gone. So enjoy it while you can.
Good luck moving. Next is Shayna.
Hi, I'm Shauna. I'm currently in Colorado. I'm actually an undergrad. I'm a computer science major. I took the lab as an internship class in the past spring. So yeah, I'm really excited to keep doing this during the summer.
Cool. And last but not least is Kajal.
Hi everyone, I'm Kajal. Yeah, I'm also Rising 2L, currently in California, the Bay Area, and I'm just excited to work with everyone and then eventually move to Boston when things are a little bit safer.
All right, great. Well, we also have a couple other folks who hopefully when they join us on other days will be able to introduce themselves. Like I said, we do have a intern from Ireland as well. But yes, we'll deal with people as they arrive. So our plan today is, well, first let me tell you about our general plan for the week. So when we have these touch points every day during this week, our goal is going to be trying to get you to the point where you will be able to sort of be more proactive in subsequent weeks, which is to say that in subsequent weeks, we'll only have expected touch points twice a week, where the entire group will get together, and that much of that time you'll spend working independently. Or independently may be not you by yourself, but you and a team member working out amongst your schedules when things might be good and dividing and work. But our goal in this week is to get you to the point where you feel part of that team and you know where to ask for help, really is the main thing. And a large part of that is knowing what to ask for help with. So you can almost sort of think about these first 4 days as sort of a crash course to get you up on nomenclature and tooling and the things that we're using, the things we're trying to do, such that when you find yourself with like, what am I supposed to do? You know how to ask for that help. And a general rule that I'll reiterate multiple times is that if at any time you're working on some project, I have a 2.5-year-old, but they're not going to make a video appearance because I don't want them to go on YouTube. And now the 7-year-old is here too. Hey, so we're trying to get you so that you can, in just a second, Aubrey, you want to give the thumbnail while I have a little discussion here? No. Abigail doesn't want that to happen, but I think it's okay.
Sure. So as David was saying, the goal is just to know where to go. And a lot of the times that is just the team. There's a general teams channel for us to go into and ask for help. Some questions have been asked 100 times. Sometimes it's going to be the first question and you're the first person to catch an issue or bug. So use the team. It's the only way to figure it out. And we're going to talk about, I'll hand it back to David.
All right. My office, in all fairness, is actually the playroom. So it's very hard to set up. There actually is no door. Anyhow, so this week, orientation. That's the bit. Today, we're gonna have you leaving with the knowledge that you can do these sort of things. Everyone's coming from different background. We have people with computer science background. We have people who have worked with the project before. We have people who have none of those things. But what we're going to do for everyone in this week is try to get everyone on the same page. So that means some of you may be hearing things that are very familiar to you, and some of you may be hearing things that are entirely unfamiliar to you. And that's fine. We recognize that everyone's coming from a different place. So if you have some background and you've been working with some of this stuff in this project before or elsewhere, there will be opportunities where you can sort of jump in and contribute stuff that you think might be helpful to people who are just learning. And if it's entirely new to you, please feel free to ask questions and stop us at any time to get things going. So before we get into a discussion of sort of project and philosophy, some of which you should have gotten from watching the video that we sent, let's go ahead and just make sure, let's do a quick check on accounts. So let's see a affirmative, how many people were able to get their Teams account up and working? All right, that looked like everyone. Okay, good. How many people were able to get a GitHub account set up? Okay, I know, okay, good. How many people were able to get a account on our DocuSimple server? And I know not everyone has been promoted to developer, so everyone got an Elise account. Okay, so what we want to do is, because we do need everyone to be able to have a developer account. So what I'm going to ask is that folks right now, because this is a good practice for moving forward, you should open up Teams and you should have it in a window next to your, somewhere on your screen that you can access, because Teams is going to be our persistent location where we will put information and be able to share things. It's also much better at sharing code snippets than the Zoom chat. So we're going to ask that as we have chats and discussions here as any part of these calls, that if we're sharing something, that we'll share it in Teams. Specifically, we'll do it in the assembly line channel because that's what everyone's sort of broadly working on. It's a common thing that everyone's working on this call. So that being said, let's have everyone sign into Teams. And in the assembly line, I'm gonna drop a link for the new folks. So, and then what I'm gonna do is ask that everyone confirm their DocuSimple account. So if you don't have a DocuSimple account, so now there is a link in the assembly line channel on Teams. And here's what I'm gonna do to make sure that everyone sees it. Everyone, when you see it, give it a thumbs up, and that'll on in Teams, not here in the visual. Give it a Teams thumbs up, and that will make it clear to me that everyone's seen it. All right, and if you do not have an account already, go to follow that link. And so I'm only seeing 3 thumbs up, so that's okay. We'll wait for other people to catch up.
I see 5.
You see 5? Oh, my Teams is being slow. Wonder if I can, oh, there we go. I see 5 now. Oh, 7, there we go. I see Aubrey, Connor, Joelle, Kajal, Catherine, Regis, Ryan, and Shauna. Okay, I think that does it.
Everyone.
Great, that's everybody. Okay, cool. So we now know you're all in Teams. If you didn't have a DocuSimple account, go ahead, sign up for that now. Well, I'm going to do a little bit, so I will not feel bad if we see you typing, because we know you're doing that. And I'm going to give you just a quick overview on minimum viable product and sort of how we're going to do our work generally as a team. And then we'll get into our first exercise together, which will be a hello world. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do a share screen. And hold on. Yeah, scheduling of this at lunch was an interesting choice in the house. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a share screen. And really just welcome all, right? That's the first thing. Welcome, okay, great. We're gonna work on Zoom. It's gonna be fun and exciting. So the first thing that I want to sort of familiarize people with is the notion that we're gonna work vaguely in something called an agile project management flow. So some of you may or may not be familiar with this as a way of working before, but you should all be familiar with the assembly line as a project. That was the video we had people watch before the session today, which talked about the birth of the assembly line, how it came out of the COVID-19 response, and then how we're building these forms to help people. You've all also had a conversation with me during the interview process where I was able to tell you about the product. So I'm going to assume all of that knowledge, and we're just going to jump into sort of how we're going to work. We said that this week we're going to have daily touch points where we all get together, but we're going to customarily have touch points 2 times a week on Tuesdays and on Fridays. Those touch points will start off with what's called a stand-up meeting, which is the idea is called stand-up meeting. It's from this idea of agile project management, where the idea is a stand-up meeting is a meeting usually where people are standing up, such that to promote it to be a short meeting is the idea. And it's basically an opportunity for you to touch base, to say, hey, here are the things I'm working on. And most importantly, say, here are the blockers I'm having, the things that are standing in the way of accomplishing what I need to accomplish. And then the team together can have some, provide some feedback to help you get over those blockers so that you'll be able to move forward. And we'll talk more in subsequent meetings about how we will use a tool called Trello, which will help us be able to identify where things are in the workflow and if there are any bottlenecks in the work people are doing. But what I want to get across today is just that the main way we're going to work is we will come together, we will work on something, and then we're going to work in an iterative way, which is to say that all the forms and everything we're going to work on, they will start out in one state. We have a set of steps that we think you need to go through to make it. But one of the important things to remember about software development is that software is never done, right? Okay. The idea is you can always improve it, you can always make it better. And so we will tomorrow introduce you to some projects to do, and then we'll start giving you out assignments. And the important thing to understand is that when we're building things, we're not trying to make things perfect at the beginning. What we're trying to do is accomplish something we call minimum viable product, and then get that out into the world, which sort of takes some of the stress off of things, because we know we can always come back and make it better. So this is just a little visual here around design thinking and around the notion that there's this iterative workflow we're going to do, which is we're going to have a problem, we're going to state that problem, we're going to try to solve it, we're going to get feedback on how our solution works, we're going to integrate that into our how we're doing things, and then we're going to sort of rinse and repeat and always be improving our topic. We'll talk more about that in detail. This is the 30,000 foot view. The main thing I wanted to do was get across this idea of minimum viable product, because it's a very useful notion that I want folks to have, because I think it helps relieve some stress, especially for those of you who are coming into this and being like, I've never programmed anything before. I really just want to do some research on some of these things. I don't want to, I don't want to be the one coding or something like that. I don't think that's actually any of you from having talked to you. But if you're feeling some of that anxiety, I don't want you to feel that. What I want everyone to know is that together we're going to be working on stuff this first week and on this first assignment to sort of make sure everyone has a common experience. But then after that, we'll try to differentiate as much as possible towards your interest and towards the needs of the overall project. The key thing is minimum viable product. So in software, one of the great things is that you can produce products with limited feature sets, which is a little different than the physical world, right? So in the physical world, if you're going to build a car, you have to build the car. But in software, you actually can build functionality before you build the entire object. So you could build a skateboard, sort of metaphorically speaking, before you build a car. A skateboard is something that gets you from A to B. It's not powered, so it's maybe not the thing that you're looking for as your final goal, but it's going to help get people from A to B. And then after a skateboard, you could build a scooter, which is to say you could add more functionality that delivers more of what you want to your end user, but doesn't yet have to have all the functionality. So the minimum viable product is that thing that you can deliver to the world that has just enough features that it's going to be useful, right? So that means it's actually going to be useful to the people who are using it, but it took a minimum amount of work to get there. It's not to say it's a crappy thing or not, it's not a cheap version of the thing. It's just the first thing you can get out that's going to be useful to people. And so what you do is you then come back around, and then over time you add more functionality, but it's a way to make sure that the perfect isn't the enemy of the good. So if you were trying to build some big fancy thing and you needed everything in place first, it might take you forever to release it. And the really beneficial part of releasing something out into the world is it comes back to this sort of feedback loop that we're talking about here. When you have something that you can release into the world, it means you also then can get input back from users, and they can tell you what really is and isn't working. And you can take that and then you can use that to make the next version even better than if you had done everything in isolation. So it's really about putting sort of a user-centered first design there, where you're saying, well, what is it the user really needs? Let's get them something so that they have something rather than nothing. And then let's hear what they're saying about what is and isn't working. Take that feedback and integrate it so the next something is even better. And then you just keep on that iterative process, and over time, you make something that is hopefully going to be really great and nice for folks. All right, that being said, hopefully now, not only, one of the things I should have said, not only do you need the DocuSimple account, but you need to make sure you asked for elevated developer privileges. Does everyone have a developer account in the DocuSimple now? I know I saw a lot of people. Yeah, Aubrey, we're good?
I gave everyone permission.
Sweet.
But can I just add in one more setup thing before we get going? If you've not filled out the survey that was sent out in the welcome email, if you could do that today, not during this activity, and I'll remind everyone again, but that's going to help make sure that we have everything else set up for the rest of the week for all of our activities.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So you really want to have it done before like 3 or 3:30 this afternoon, because we're going to sit down with that and use that to help inform some of our work for tomorrow. Which is to say, Aubrey and I are going to sit down and figure it out. So please, if you get that in, you've got it. All right, great. Well then, what I want to do is I want to invite everyone to, and this is one of the things I'm sure we've all gotten used to this from Zoom school, but if you go ahead and you have your browser open in one part of your screen real estate, and then you can have us open, the video open in another part, and maybe the Zoom open in another window, and then it gets very crowded. I only have one screen, so I feel your pain. Although it's bigger than, hopefully no one's on like a tiny little notebook. If you are, we'll work around it. But basically what I want you to do is I want you to go to the DocuSimple server. So that's the same link that was in the Teams. And I want you to go to your playground. This is what your playground should look like. If you aren't there, if you're on a different looking screen, if you click up on your email up here, and then you choose playground, you will find yourself on a screen that looks like this. And you'll probably, if you haven't used the DocuSimple server before, you're going to see this test YAML in there. And so what we're going to do is we're going to forget about that. We're going to start from scratch. So I want everyone to follow around with me and go ahead and click add. We're going to create a new interview. And that's going to make this all blank. And let's just call this Hello World. You don't have to put YAML on it. We'll add it for you, but I'm going to do Hello World and I'm going to hit save. And it's not going to save it because it actually needs to be something in there. So I'm going to put Hello World and I'm going to just type the world question. I'll explain why I did that. I'm going to save, and now I have a file saved. So I want a thumbs up from, I'm not sure I can see everyone on my screen, so let me get this. And if I do that now, I can see everyone. All right, and I like a thumbs up for everyone after they've gotten to the point where your screen now looks like mine. And I'm seeing waiting. Okay. Just waiting. Okay, I see everyone but Catherine. Do you have can we help you with anything?
Yeah, I have where do I get to this new screen? I'm on the DocuServe.
Yeah, if you go up to where your account name is, your email, click on that up in the top right, and then say this thing that says playground.
Yeah.
And then that would get you something. And then to make the new one, you click this add button here.
Okay.
In the top left.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
We're now all on the same. So a little bit of history for those of you who have never done any programming or coding before. It's a very common practice when you learn a new programming language to write a hello world. which is to say that you get the computer to print out the words "Hello World." And this is just a way to convince yourself that everything is installed and working properly, and you have some rudimentary understanding of how to write a program in that particular language. What we're working with is a framework called DocAssemble. It's not important that you understand all the ins and outs of it. It's a framework written on top of Python, which is a programming language that a lot of people know, and some of you I know have some experience with. Don't fear, our goal is not to turn everyone on this call into a production coder. Our goal is to get you fluent enough with these tools to, once we start working on our interviews, for you to be able to be that go-between between a subject matter expert and our tools, to be able to breathe life into something that's going to serve our clients in the end. Okay, so our primary client base that we're thinking about when we're thinking about users or end users, we're thinking about self-represented litigants. So one way you can sort of think about a lot of what we're doing here this summer is if you were working at a legal aid firm and you were helping produce those pro se packets. So when I did legal aid one summer when I was in law school, and people would come in and we couldn't help everyone. Largely that was because we were the only legal aid for like hundreds of miles, and it meant that due to conflict reasons, there was half the people we could help and half the people we couldn't, because if we'd dealt with them before. But functionally, there was some limit on the number of people we could serve. And because of that, we create pro se packets. So it'd be like a packet of paper, and some of you will be familiar with this if you worked in legal aid before, which would have all the forms you need to do, say, for an uncontested divorce, or all the forms you need for this or that. And we could give those to people and say, oh, well, here's this legal information. You can take that and use that. So we're effectively doing that as our project is we're producing pro se materials for people to use. That's a little bit of an oversimplification, because some of the stuff we're going to use may be used by attorneys or advocates helping someone. But that's the main audience that we generally think about as a self-represented litigant, because if we build something that they can use, then it's also something that's accessible and usable to attorneys and advocates. That being said, you need to know how to talk to our tools to get them to do things. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to help you write a little code. All right, so this is our playground. And in our playground, we're going to write something here and here. Basically, it's just text, and it's specially formatted text, which is, as you can see here, it's got this .yml extension on it. And we call it a YAML file. And it's just a structured text that allows us to give information to the computer in a structured way. If you're familiar with Python, you might be familiar with YAML files. You actually can write Python inside these files, which is to say Python, the programming language. But we're going to deal with just some simple things that are inherent to DocAssemble, the framework. And so you all know from watching the video, DocAssemble is a thing that helps you make guided interviews. So we're going to make a really quick guided interview. But let's go ahead and start by doing our hello world. So DocAssemble is constructed of different parts, and you would have seen these in your sort of the first YAML file that came up, and they're little code blocks. So actually, and you can see down here, they're in the playground, you have a lot of helpful stuff, like there's some examples of making text and stuff. But let's just do something really simple. We're going to, everyone go ahead and type the word question, colon, and then hello world, exclamation point. And then what we're going to do, and this is a process that we will continue to do throughout our time together here today, I'm going to write something, you're going to do the same thing, and then we're going to save it or save and run it. And we might pause before or after to talk about what happened and if it's what we expected to happen or if not. And I recognize that everyone's coming to, I'm assuming the way I'm approaching this conversation is if no one has any background in this at all. And so my question, and if you have experience with DocAssemble, you can hold off and see if anyone else wants to jump in first. But does anyone have any guess what might happen just because of the context of our conversation and everything we've been talking about? If I hit the word save and run on the playground, anyone have any guess what may or may not happen as we're watching our screen here? And of course, you all have a way to figure that out quite quickly. You could all hit save and run. I think you sound very clever. Does anyone want to have a guess?
I guess it would probably like print out the phrase hello world, or there might be some like error because it's like got an exclamation point instead of a question mark.
Yeah, there are two, that's two good things. It's gonna produce some type of output. Let's see what happens. So I'm gonna hit save and run. And it opened up a new window, okay? And we get an error message here. If I had written everything in a way that DocuSimple could understand, then this window would have had an interview on it or some part of an interview. Obviously, I did something that it wasn't expecting because it's giving me this error. And so the first thing I want everyone to feel, to get introduced to is the notion that errors are not bad. Errors are our friends, okay? So an error is our friend in that it is the signpost that helps us hopefully get to where we want to be. And you're gonna run into errors all the time when you're coding and programming things because you're gonna mess up on little bits here or there. I always like to use the analogy that a computer is kind of like the most stringent article editor you will ever run into. Like if you're doing a citation and you don't get it exactly right, they're just like, no, I can't read this. Computer is very, very picky. So having just something off by one character is gonna be a problem. So let's just see what we can learn from this error here by reading it and see if it makes any sense to us. It says, DocuSimple has finished executing all code blocks marked as initial or mandatory and finished asking all questions marked as mandatory, if any. It is a best practice to end your interview with a question that says goodbye or something like that. So that's sort of an error in written sort of human readable language there. Any guesses about maybe what we did wrong? Ryan had a thought maybe we might have had some type of syntax problem. We had maybe like the wrong character somewhere. But this seems to be maybe something a little different. It says, it's finished executing all code blocks marked as initial or mandatory. Thoughts? Well, do we have anything here that says initial or mandatory? Now let's try a little something. Everyone go ahead and right before this, go ahead and let's just type the word mandatory, colon, and then the word true with a capital T. And I want us to notice a couple things about the playground. One thing is that when I type a word and then I put a colon here, you can notice the coloration changes. These are special reserved words that are telling DocuSimple to do certain things. Similarly, true is a reserved word that's saying something is true. And then hello world is just sort of text. Let's just, any guesses what might happen now if we hit save and run? And you can unmute yourselves and feel free just to speak up for a small enough group here.
It'll probably not have any errors with the like mandatory question asking, but it'll probably still raise the same problem with not ending with like a goodbye and exit option.
Maybe. Let's see. Well, so what I got is I got hello world. So that was a really good guess on Ryan's part because we did notice there were two things here. This is just sort of telling us about best practice. So usually you can't sort of enforce best practice, but here the error code could mention it because nothing was there. But yeah, so we did that. So does everyone, let's see a thumbs up on everyone who has a hello world. Okay, I know about a little more than half of you have already coded something before, but for those of you who have not, you are now coders. Woo! You have taken a computer and you have told it you want it to do something, and it has done the thing you wanted it to do. Okay, we haven't done very much yet though, so let's see if we can make things a little more interesting. In practice, you're usually going to not just do this. So let's just talk about what's going on here. The DocuSimple is made up of these little things called blocks. So basically, you'll have a bunch of code, and you might remember this from the, if I go back and I look at my test code, you don't do this, I'll do this because I can just do this, get this back. If we looked at our test code, this is an example of what a full YAML file would look like. And you would see that it has these little divisions between those dashes, and those are blocks. And they can be different types of blocks. They can be question blocks, they can be code blocks, and the different blocks do different jobs. But basically you have this YAML file which is split up between blocks. doing these different jobs. What a doc assemble will do is normally it'll go through and it'll go through all the blocks and it'll say, is there something I have to do here? And the way it does that is if it's mandatory, then it says, oh, I have to do the stuff in this block. If it's not mandatory, it says, oh, well, I don't have to do the stuff in this block. I'm going to keep on going. And then what it'll do is it'll look for whether or not there's something later on that references anything in the above blocks. And so there might be something in that above block that said you didn't have to do it, but by the time you get down here, it needs it. So at that point, then it'll be like, oh, I do need that thing. And we'll see what that means in a little. I'm just trying to give you a little preview. So what we're going to do is here we have this mandatory true hello question hello world. One of the things that's interesting, if I do hello world and then I do a new line and I do this is cool, and then I hit save and run, I won't belabor by asking you what happens. If I do that, I get an error. Okay, and the reason I get an error is because it's not quite sure what's going on. It's used to having these things be on one line. So in order to be able to print something out in your question block, this is called the question. Even though it's not always a question, it might be hello world here. What you do is you do a space and then you can do a pipe, which is the vertical line that for most people is what you get when you hit the shift slash or shift slash. I always get those mixed up. And if you do that, and then you take hello world and you move things over there like this is the proper syntax. So if I hit save and run here, now I get hello world, this is cool. And just so that you understand what's going on there, let's close that. If I want to have something in more than one line in a question block or in a question, I'll do this pipe and they'll come over, and then something that the Docker symbol cares about a lot, and Python cares about a lot too, if you're familiar with Python, is spacing and indenting. So by indenting this text, by adding this pipe, making a new line and indenting this text, it's saying, okay, all of this is part of this. Okay, so just a way of letting it know that. So the other nice thing is that lets us use special characters and stuff in there as well. So now this isn't much of an interview. Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to make it clear to everyone that an indent is one tab or two spaces
yes.
in this format. One tab,
so you can
two
either,
spaces.
I can either hit the tab button or I can do two spaces. And you will notice and Aubrey, please, if you have other little ideas, reminders like that, please do jump in. And anyone as well who has background information could be helpful. Also notice that the coloration of the words change here, and that can be an indication that it knows, the playground knows that it's treating things that are colored the same in a different way than the stuff that are colored differently. That being said, let's make another block, because we said we could make multiple blocks. So let's make a new line, get rid of the indent, do 3 dashes. Let's make a new question. We'll use the pipe again. And let's, I'm just going to change hello world to hello. Now let's make it like we're talking to someone. And then a question will say, what is your name? And what I want to do is, if any guesses here, what would happen if I hit save and run on this guy?
I assume it would print hello and what is your name on like 2 separate lines, one above each other.
Well, that's an interesting question. What is the nature of the block? Are they different lines? Or are they something else? So I get hello, and then I'm stuck. I have no way to get to the second question. That's weird. Well, let's remember our first error. Our first error said, I've done all the things that are marked mandatory or initial. And then we added this mandatory to make sure that we saw something. What do you think happens now if I add that mandatory true to this second block? Let's just find out. Hello. Still not very helpful. So there's a weird thing going on here, actually. Let's play around with this. If I change the order here, what do you think is going to happen if I change the order?
I'll probably only show what is your name.
Yeah, let's see. What is your name? Okay, well, what's sort of weird about this question I have? It's not really a question, is it? I mean, it's a question, but when I hit save and run, it doesn't really ask me for anything. Okay, so let's introduce you to some other things that you can put in a block. You can put a question. You also put a sub question. Be specific. Okay, now if I run that, now I get a what's your name, and then I get a little text underneath. But what don't I have that you think I should maybe have here if I'm asking a question?
A way to answer the question?
Yeah, a way to answer the question. So there's another element that I can add, which is something called a field or fields. I'm gonna type in fields. And I can add a little thing here, and again, I'll do a little tab. And then I'm gonna say, I'm gonna type something here that's not gonna make any sense to you yet. Will maybe in a moment. So I'm gonna say full name and username, and then if I run this, now this is looking good. Now I've got something, what is your name? Be specific, full name. I can enter in some text. I can click continue, and then I get my hello. Okay, so right now, these are sort of the four parts of a block of a question block that you want to know about. So you've got this mandatory, either true or false. Although if you leave it off, it will just be false. You have this question, you can write some text. Sub question, you can write some text that's sort of not in the big bold spot. And then you have fields, the ability to take in some answer. In this case, see what we had here. We had full name. It was grabbing that from what I called it here. What do you think this thing is here on the right side of the colon? And let's hear from some folks we haven't heard from before. And if you participate in this sort of stuff before, that's okay. You can say stuff too. In fact, I might call on you if you're. Yeah, Joelle.
It's the variable.
Yeah, this is like the container. This is the variable name. This is the container that we're going to put your full name in. So here I want to show you something. I'm gonna say hello. I'm gonna change this. I'm gonna go hello, and I'm gonna write this. And you don't know anything about the syntax or what a $ or these brackets or anything does. But if you had the guess based upon the context, now that I have this screen that asks me, what is my name? I have this thing, Joelle's told us this is the variable name. And that seems to be associated with the thing where we put the value. And then I have this screen that says hello, comma, and then I've encased that username into this weird combination of things. Any guesses on what might happen now if I hit run and save, or save and run? I just want to get multiple voices here. Connor, you've unmuted. That's just as good as raising your hand.
Yeah, I'll give it. So I'm guessing it'll just autofill wherever you enter that username now, right? In the code.
Yeah. Let's see. So if I hit save and run, you guys can all do this along, or you all can do this along, and I'll say David. It's not my full name, but it's good enough for our purposes. And say continue, then it says hello, David. All right, so how many of you were able to get something? So what you did is a $, curly Q bracket, username, curly Q bracket. Let's see a thumbs up for everyone who was able to get that to work. Congratulations. Not only are you coders, now you've told the computer to do something contingent based upon what you've done. So you didn't just say, hey, computer, do this thing. You said, hey, computer, take in this input, and based upon what input someone gives you, spit out something based upon that input. But we can do even better than that, okay? Now that we've got this notion of, and we also can do it, we can also be a little clever here about these mandatory things. These both say mandatory. So what I'm gonna do actually is I'm gonna change that around. I'm gonna get rid of this mandatory. Which one do I want to? No, I want to keep this mandatory. I'm going to get rid of this mandatory here in the beginning on line 1. So now we've got this question block. What is your name? Be specific, full name, username. Then I've got this other block, which says mandatory true, question, hello, username. Any guesses of about what might happen here? Like it could either work or it could not work. If it doesn't work, it would work and not work in some interesting way, maybe. I can't stand the suspense. I'm just gonna, let's try it. What is your name? Full name. I'll say David. Continue. Hello, David. But wait a second. I didn't have a mandatory call here. What's going on? Well, this is what I was talking about before. Docassemble reads through the blocks. It reads through this block first time. It goes through and it's like, doesn't say it's mandatory. I'm not going to do that. Then it gets to this one. Oh, it's mandatory. You got to do this one. And then it looks at what it has to do. It has to say hello. And then it's supposed to spit out a username, this variable username. It doesn't know what username is. And it's like, wait a second. What the heck's a username? And then it looks back up and it says, oh, look, here's a place where username is defined. I better include that. And so it decides that it has to show this question because the answer to this question was needed in order to display this screen. This is important to understand because when you're making an interview, you might have a set of questions you're asking that only sometimes things will show up based upon whether or not someone answers yes or no to a question. But sometimes they'll show up based upon whether or not someone includes an answer to a question. And Docassemble tries to be clever about this and only show you, what it's trying to do is only show you the stuff that is relevant or that is needed. And so it will infer what is needed based upon logically whether or not it needed something else to display the thing that it wants to display. Something we'll talk about tomorrow is how you actually can play with that, and you can change that around and do more stuff. That's sort of the general gist of sort of this thing we call execution order as the computer's reading through Docassemble. So what I want to do is I want to show you one more block type. And then after we play with this block type for a while, then you'll really all be big coders. All right. So we've got our 2 blocks. We're going to make a new one. This one's going to be something called a code block. So we're going to write code : We're going to do the same thing. So we want to write on multiple lines. So we're going to do the pipe and then a new line and then indent. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to write something. I'm going to call it a secret message. Say equal boo. All right. When you're the secret message, you don't have to use underscores. You could use all one word, but this should look similar to you. This looks kind of like our username. They're both black in the way that the playground is rendering them. They both have this underscore. That's just sort of a stylistic choice. What I'm doing here is I took a variable called username, and I filled that variable with whatever the user put in there, what they typed. Here I have a variable, and instead of asking the assembly, asking Docassemble to ask the user what should go on that value, I'm just saying, here's a value to put in that. So a variable is just like a box that you're going to put some data in, some content in. And I'm saying, here's a box called secret message. I want to put in the word boo. And in Python, you want to, if you're going to have a string of numbers and letters like that, you want to put that inside quotation marks so that it knows where it starts and where it ends, what you're putting in the box. So you got secret message equals boo. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use the same syntax I had here, which is like $ variable name inside curly Q brackets. And I'm gonna put that there. And now let's see if we can get someone who hasn't spoken yet to guess what's gonna happen when I hit save and run. Catherine, do you have any guesses about what it might look like? Let's assume no errors. Let's assume no errors. We'll assume no errors.
It's a message. I don't know.
That's okay. It's a valid answer. Kajol, do you have a thought?
It might pull up boo after username.
Yeah, I think it's a very reasonable guess. Let's try it out. Save and run. What is your name? David. Continue. Hello, David. Boo. All right. So let's examine what's going on there. I did not put mandatory in here, right? The only mandatory block I have is this one. In fact, I could change the order of these, right? I could take this one, and move it here. Actually, I will probably like that better because it won't have to go back. But the point is, like, this is showing up. It's going through. This isn't mandatory. It's like, I don't need to use that. It goes through here. This is mandatory. I don't need to use that. It gets here. This is mandatory. It's like, okay, now I need to pay attention. Hello, username. Ah, crap. Where's username? Oh, it's up here. Okay, I'm going to need to show this question. And then it gets here and say, oh, crap, where's secret message? And it goes up here and it runs the code. It runs this block and secret message and finds that secret message is called boo. All right. And then, of course, if I run this in this different order, it's same deal as before. Hello, boo. So now I'm going to do something, and I want you to see if you can guess how it's going to behave. All right. Now I've added this line here. I had this line here at line 9. I say if username, and then I have this weird thing where I have two equal signs. So something that a lot of programming languages will do is they'll distinguish between two equal signs and one equal sign. So here's like a variable name, right? Because username we know is a variable name. So it's a name of a box we're going to put something in, and two equal signs. Here's a variable name and one equal sign. And this is the difference between assignment and evaluation. So here we know that secret message equals beam me up, Scotty. It means take the text, beam me up, Scotty, and put it in that box. What this is saying, username equals Scotty, it's not saying take Scotty and put it in the box username. It's saying evaluate and see if the value inside username is equal to the value Scotty. And this is an if statement. So it's saying if we read this sort of like English, if username is Scotty, then do this basically. And again, you'll see this is indented inside this if statement. Like I said, Python really likes the indents. So it's got, 2 tabs or 4 spaces. So based upon this, and just for what you understand about logic and context, if I now run this and I say my name is Scotty, and I click continue, what's going to happen? Catherine, you got a guess?
It's going to pull in beam me up, Scotty.
Yeah, let's see. Hello, Scotty, beam me up. All right. So now, this is really cool. If you're following along and you've done this, now you're programmers who have not just told the computer something to do. You said, computer, get input from a user. And now you've said, take that input, evaluate it. If the input is of a certain type, do a certain thing. Now there is one thing let's say if we go back, what if I say my name is not Scotty? What if I say my name is David? What do you think might happen? And anyone can answer this. Everyone who's been really, really quiet now has some experience. So I know I told you to originally sort of hold back. So let's just open it up. What do we think is going to happen now if I say my name is David?
You'll just say, hello, David.
Hello, David.
With that.
Shauna, you want to give a guess? I saw a hand there.
That's what I was going to say.
All right, let's see. It's an error. Let's read the error, because remember, I told you earlier that errors were our friends. See, just when you thought everything, you knew everything. It's throw your little curveball. Interview has an error. There was a reference to variable secret message that could not be looked up in the question file. And then it has a little more stuff, and it tells us actually sort of where things went wrong. It says, well, it needed a definition for this thing, and the closest it could find is sort of here, but that didn't help. So when this ran, that didn't help, and it needed it because it was referenced there. Let's think about logically what happened. It went through, it said, okay, I don't need this, not mandatory. I don't need this, not mandatory. I got here, it said, okay, hello, username. Oh, how do I get username? Oh, I got to ask this question. So it asked that question. I then answered that my username was David. Okay. Well, username was referenced here, so this was going to then run because I got a username. And it did this evaluation, and it said username. What do you think it said here? Was username equal to Scotty? No, username was not equal to Scotty. So it did not define secret message as beam me up. It just didn't define secret message. There's no place anywhere else that secret message was defined. So usually what you'll see with an if statement is you'll see an if else statement. So if, and then at the same vertical alignment as the if, you can do else. And then you could set something different to happen. So I could say, if my username is equal to Scotty, then make the secret message beam me up. Otherwise, just make it nothing. Now, if I run this, how do you think it behaves if I answer David? Let's look back at it. It's going to say, oh, hello, username. Oh, how do I get username? Okay, it's going to ask me this question. And it's going to look for secret message. Well, the only place secret message is referenced is in this code block. So it's going to try to run this code block. It's going to go to this first line, line 9. It's going to say, is the username equal to Scotty? Well, if it is, it will say the secret message is equal to beam me up. If it isn't, that is to say, if it's not equal to Scotty, then it's going to say secret message is nothing. So what do we think happens if I click on David? Aubrey.
It's just going to say, hi, David. No message.
Let's see. Hello, David. And no error, right? That's the important thing, no error. So what you have now all done, and this is kind of amazing to think about that you've done it now and just, I mean, I guess we've been on since 12:30, but yeah, so just about an hour, because a lot of that was me blathering in the beginning. So not quite an hour. And not quite an hour, you have been able to tell a computer to write a little program that takes in input from the outside world, that looks at that input from the outside world, and based upon what that input is, display either one thing or another thing. Right now, you have all the basic building blocks that you need. I mean, we'll show you some things to make things easier and simpler and stuff, but this is basically the building blocks that you need to get things going, to be able to start coding the interviews that we'll be making for our self-represented litigants. We're going to have tools, and you'll learn about them, that will help take a first pass at writing this YAML file for you, so you won't have to start from a blank page. And that's going to be really, really helpful. But just to give you an idea of sort of the basics, like this is enough to like get you started. So now I've been talking for like a super long time, and this is where I always joke that I don't like to talk this much. And this is where then people are like, but David, I've been in class with you and I know you talk all the time. And then other people are like, wait a second, this is the second time I've heard him make that joke. And then some people are like, oh, second, this is the third time I've heard him make that joke. The point is now, let's open up the floor and see what questions or things people want to talk about just sort of, let me just sort of this introductory code, our hello world. And maybe Aubrey, if you want to lead part of this discussion, that would be fine too.
Yeah. So just while everyone else's voices are warming up after resting, I just want to say to everyone that this is so cool, and I hope that you get hooked and find that errors are one of the greatest things to work through. As a student, I don't think we get a lot of validation, and this is a great place to find it. When you work through a problem, you're going to see that you solve something right away. So I hope you're hooked. But the concept that we've talked about is really helpful. The way that each code block talks to itself is something, or to the other blocks, is really important and foundational that we just talked about. And you're going to go from something like this that I know seems really complicated into things that you're going to impress yourself with every day. So I hope everyone's very excited. And then David, do you want to just maybe take a second, since we have a little time, to just show them the resources that are down at the bottom? Well,
Yeah.
if anyone's got a question at any point, just raise your hand. I can see you all, or comment.
So one thing that maybe is worth saying, you don't have to write YAML files in this browser, right? So this is just a text file, right? So it's just a text file, but instead of .txt at the end, it's .yml. Okay, so if you had some other text writing tool that didn't add a bunch of weird formatting like Word, then you could write these files in that. What's nice about the playground here is that it provides you a lot of context for what's going on. So the first one, and we've talked about it before, obviously, is it colors these things based upon what it thinks is going on. So that can be a good indicator to you to make sure that you understand. So for example, if I didn't have this pipe there, you'll notice that then it sort of changes the colors of everything. And that might be a clue that it's not parsing the text in the way that you would expect it. And I would get an error if I then ran this now. Right, so I'm gonna get some error because it's trying to treat this if username beam me up Scotty as something that it isn't, right? So the coloration, that's the first part. Also, you have this search tool, which obviously is sort of what you might expect. It allows you to search inside the YAML. And then you have all these, yep, go ahead.
Sorry, the search tool is case sensitive. So if you put a capital S there, it's not going to find Scotty if it's lowercase in your YAML. You'll drive yourself insane in the beginning.
Yeah. So yeah, so B.
See, it doesn't find it.
Nothing. You've got these different options here, which are for the most part self-explanatory. Save and run. The reason why you might not be doing save and run all the time, it's possible sometimes you might run into an error. You can fix the code, save it, and then just reload this page, as opposed to have to start from the beginning again and save and run. And you'll find that really useful when you're debugging interviews that have lots of screens. So you're 15 screens in, and you're run into an error, and you're ugh. And then you can fix the code, save it, and then either reload that page or go back a page and then come back to it, and then not have to reload everything. That won't work for everything. Some things you will need to restart the interview to fix the error, but it depends on what the error is. You can download this YAML file, obviously, if you want. Like I said, it's just the file. There are a lot of examples here, like built-in documentation. So if I want to know how to do marking up text, adding this thing called vocabulary, which is sort of global terms, which are sort of little help things you want to show up. How to work with documents. Some of this stuff is more or less relevant because we've built some of our own tools that don't use the built-in docassemble, but this is here. And so what you're seeing, just to orient you, right, in this formatting, and this is sort of, here's the example you choose, then here's the example source code in this next column, and then this is what it looks like when it's rendered in the final interview, right? So you can add formatting to your questions such that you can make things headings, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. And this all shows you an example. So you've got this built-in documentation here, but where you'll probably really like to look at things is over here. And Aubrey, do you want to talk a little bit more about this? Because they've updated some of these since back in my day.
I don't use it, so I can't really talk about it in a smart
So,
way.
yeah.
I just
The
know
first
that
thing
that's
you'll
where your variables are.
Yeah. So the first thing you'll know is there are variables. Some of these variables are not variables that you defined here. Okay, so you see like these guys here. Some of those are variables that are just always defined. But then when you scroll down here, you'll see username in those blue. That's when you start to see the variables that you define. You can get a little information about these ones that you didn't. It's a special variable used in multi-user interviews, blah, blah, blah. So there's this bunch of interviews that you're not going to recognize. Then you'll get into the variables that you define. And then it's going to have some places where there are undefined names. The reason why it's calling secret messages undefined is because secret message is undefined, except for in those instances where it runs through this code block, right? So if I did something like this, secret message is still undefined, but now if I think,
I think if
oh,
you get,
well, there we go. It was a typo is what was going on. Is I had somehow typed secret message there, probably when I don't know when I had typed it there. Let's try this again. Oh, I'm sorry. Another thing that'll happen when you click on a variable, it will actually put the variable in it wherever your cursor is. So that's a good way to avoid mistyping things. Oh, and I think it's saying it's undefined because of this. I remove that. See, if I remove that there, it's defined because, well, it's not called, so it doesn't care about it. Yes, Ryan.
So is the purpose of the $sign and the curly braces just so that it like fills that text with the variable instead of just printing out the word like user underscore name?
Yeah, that's the functional, that's where you end up. What's really going on here is that when I'm doing inside the question, it's expecting this is all just a string of characters, right? So if I just typed that without those there, then it's just going to think these are normal words. It doesn't know that they're variable names. So if I run that, then it's just going to say hello username secret message. And since it didn't know these were variables, it never knew to call the question, never knew to do those other things. So basically, by putting inside this place where normally it expects a string, which is string is just how people talk about like text and numbers. By doing this $sign curly brackets, you're saying, oh, this thing inside the curly brackets, it's not just words, it's code. In this case, it happens to be a variable. And so then it echoes out the variable.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh no, of course. So that's bits there. You can do mandatory in different places. I didn't have to do. You can also put mandatory along with fields as opposed to on the questions. Tomorrow we'll probably get, or maybe not tomorrow. I think actually it's Thursday. It's scheduled to. We'll get to talking about question order, right? So I'll just really quickly show you something. If I have another question, we have some time. If I have another question, and it is, hey there, and I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to make this. I'm going to make this a mandatory question. It's going to just say, hey there. But let's go ahead and give it a question too, so that we have a way to get to another thing. You don't have to do a sub question. I can just do fields. I'm just going to call this hey, and I'm just going to call it hey as the variable name. This is really silly. But now if I do this, I'm going to get, hey there, hey. Okay, I don't know what in the world this is doing, but it asks me a question, and I get to my full name question. Then I'm either Scotty or I'm not Scotty, and I get hello, David. I'm seeing this extra dot there because I added a period after secret message. So I don't know why I did that. I did that because I was thinking it was a sentence, but if I do that, obviously I get that weird behavior like that. If I don't want it to do the hey before the before, I can change the order around, either by changing the order here. If I do that, I'm going to get my name question first, and then I'll get here, and then I get stuck here again because I didn't have another question. But I did that by changing the order. You can also change the order based upon something in the code block. So remember the way it read through is it read through this when it said, oh, it's not mandatory, I don't need to do it. Oh, it's not mandatory, I don't need to do it. Oh, this is mandatory, I need username. Okay, let me ask the username question. Oh, I need secret message. Okay, let me ask the thing with secret message. You could, in the same way that this called first username and then secret message, you could write a code block, and I won't get into it now because we really don't have that much time. No one has to do that. But you can get in, you can basically just say, oh, you can just list the order of the variables that you want to have, and you can change the order of the questions. I don't want to steal Aubrey's thunder from later in the week. I know she has a very fun exercise that is going to involve multiple questions that we can get to with that. But you can start to see some of the extensibility. That being said, why don't we just, if there are no other, do people understand that you've just been given magic powers? Yeah, Shauna.
I just wanted to say in the variables on the right side, if you click on the little magnifying glass, it'll pull you to where the variable is instead of clicking on it.
Awesome.
And then if you click on the variable itself, it will put that value in. So like if I'm up there and I hit secret message, it'll put in secret message.
Which is good for preventing typos.
Yes, good for preventing typos.
It happens to everyone.
You can also, you can find where things, but if you click on this guy, you can actually find where variables that you've defined, where they show up, and it'll say where they were defined or where they're mentioned. So that's if you want to, like, if you have a variable that's in a whole bunch of different places, you can use this and then you can see them all next to each other, as opposed to having to go search. So just fun little things there. All right, you have all been given superpowers. Some of you already had these superpowers. I know, I'm sorry you had to sit through kind of boring reminding you of your superpowers. Things will get more interesting for everyone involved as we go forward. But you now have superpowers. You are now all coders. Aubrey, do you want to talk about tomorrow?
I do. Do you mind if I steal the screen share? Thank you. All right, so, excuse me. So tomorrow we're going to start talking about what to do, what this code is going to start to produce for us. And if you watched the video, you saw a demo of one of the biggest forms and first forms that we started working on, which is 209A. And you saw that once you go through these interviews, it populates everything into a PDF, or it can also be a Word document. But we're going to work on how to make a PDF start to fill, because that's going to be essentially what we're all going to be doing, is using these variables and taking everything from your playground and those user inputs and putting it into something. So we're going to talk about how to build that something. And what we're going to do is start to build what we call a package. And just while we have our playgrounds up, your package gets pulled in here. And we're going to talk about what is a package on Thursday, but that starts first with our PDF. And so what I've made is a Lab Libs. Say that one 5 times fast. And you're going to—
I didn't want any copyright issues.
Yeah. And I'm embarrassed to say how long this story took me to make up, because it's probably the hardest thing I had to do for you all this week. But we're going to do what we call label our PDF. And I'm going to, shortly after we hang up here, post some videos and instructions in this PDF for you to watch, read, and try filling it out yourselves. We're not going to go through how to label it together today, because one of the big things that we want to work on is when you have a question, a lot of the times the thing you're going to get in response is a resource that tells you how to do it. you can still ask questions about that resource or if you run into an error, but it is important that you start to see how we keep all of the information for you. And a lot of those things are YouTube videos to watch through. You can watch them at more than 1x, you can watch them 2x a lot of the time, but it's going to teach you how to go through this. So what we're going to do is label this. And so then tomorrow we're going to get together and take our labeled PDFs and run it through what we call the Weaver, which is going to help us get the start of our package. It's going to create a YAML, it's going to bring in our PDF, and it's going to, we're going to be able to run through an interview that actually fills this out. But that part we'll do together. So all of this information and all of the links to do this are going to be in Teams in the channel. But if you get lost, reach out. Does anybody have any questions? Does that make sense? Does that feel good and exciting?
And to make it clear, this example Lit Labs PDF might be a form from a PDF court form,
yeah,
right? That you were starting with and then filling out as to start our ProSave.
Yeah, let's see. Do we have a minute? Yeah, I'll pull up a old PDF that's labeled. Nope, that one's unlabeled.
And so the materials Aubrey's going to share with you are going to be basically pointing you in the right direction, how to take this PDF, add labels to it, and get it ready to put through our Weaver. And so those are the activities that should be able to help keep you busy this afternoon and tomorrow morning.
Yep. And the one other thing is going to be to fill out that survey if you haven't, so I'll put that in there as well. Let's see. Okay, good. I was looking for the first form that I ever did. Oh, but it doesn't show me my labels. But so each of these, yeah, I don't have an editor anymore. But so here is like a
sort of document, but yeah.
Real court. Yeah, this is a real court form that had the labels here. So what you're going to do is this one.
And just to give you an idea, that's a flat PDF, which means that it's not fillable. So we're gonna show you the tools to take it, to add in a text field, and then to name that text field with a variable that our Weaver is going to be able to understand. And the reason that's going to be important is because if you name it with our naming convention, which will be described in the documentation we're going to show you, then the Weaver will be able to interpret and say, oh, this thing has the word name in it. Well, I think it's a name. And so when it builds the YAML file for you, it's going to, oh, it's the name of a person. Well, a person usually has these parts, like maybe we want to know about their address and their this and that. So it'll help with the creation of the content we're looking for. Here's a free tool that everyone should have access to, which will be included in the resources. But if you have Adobe Pro or something, you can, and you're comfortable using that, you can use that as well.
Yep. But so this would be like, yeah, so these are all from the conventions that are going to be in the documentation, and you'll be able to use this tool to label it, download it, and then we'll walk through the next steps together. But this would be like, you've got a fresh form, first step is to label. So we're going to do that.
And again, if you have questions, don't wait until, we will deal with questions tomorrow when we get together, but don't wait until tomorrow when we get together if you have questions. So start working on this as soon as you have time today or tomorrow, and then start asking questions in Teams, and we'll be there to help you. We're just trying to model what this is going to look like as we move to a sort of more, distributed work plate. And then, of course, I know the other thing that's a little tough is that people have different amounts of time commitments. This week is obviously very sort of heavy on stuff. Some people I know are going to have less time or more time, or splitting the difference. So we're very aware of where people are at and want to meet you where you're at. So if you're like, just talk to us on Teams and we'll help work with it.
Okay. Questions,
all right.
concerns?
Okay, then be on the lookout for some stuff in the assembly line channel from Aubrey to do later today and tomorrow. Please fill out that, one of them being fill out the form, because we're going to make some assignments of some real work for people. And we will actually give you some real work assignments starting this week. We won't expect them to be done this week, but we'll give you something that you can start working on. And that's going to be part based upon sort of how many hours you're doing and stuff like that. So that's why we need the survey.
Okay.
All right, you guys all have superpowers now. or as my son would probably think, he'd probably think it was more like magic. My son really loves magic. It's like, he just loves magic. So like you now have all learned how to make certain incantations that can make, roughly speaking, silicon think. Like, I don't know, that's pretty cool. So, all right. If there are no more questions, and Aubrey, you have nothing else, we will, oh, here's a very, very important thing. Tomorrow, we will not be meeting at 12:30 because there's a weird time thing. So we will be meeting at 12 tomorrow, but we won't be ending at 2, we'll end at 1:30. Right, so we're just gonna move that up.
And I'll put a new link with all of the information tomorrow so that we get used to going to Teams to look for where we're supposed to be. So it'll all be in Teams in the channel. If you can't find it, send out a flag.
All right,
Cool.
12 o'clock tomorrow. See you at high noon. Hopefully it's not gonna be a shootout.
Good
Hey, guys.
luck.
Good luck.
Good day, everyone.